Peace, everyone. Welcome back to Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, or people, or them, or they, or whatever gender. I don't care what you are, or who you are, or what you say you are, or what label you got. Come join us, okay? Because you can see right here, it says no more labels. All right. So we're going to try to stay away from labels. Today, I don't know how it happened, but Ryan's part of the Facebook group, Anonymous Addiction, My Truth About AA, as Bobby C sees it. And he joined the group. We kind of message each other back and forth. And we've been doing this for I'd say about 2 weeks now. And it's just wonderful because I got to know this gentleman, and I'm really keen on him. I really like him as a human being, as a person. Even though he is a CEO of a big rehab company, corporation, let's see, ARC, Addiction Recovery Center in South Africa. You believe it, ladies and gentlemen? I'm international. When you go on this internet thing and you do YouTube stuff, it automatically goes international. So, hey, Ryan, introduce yourself a little bit. And say hi to the audience.
Hi, everyone. How you doing? Good. How Bobby? How you doing?
Great.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the fact that you're doing this with me. I think it's going to be interesting, and I've been watching a lot of your stuff, and I've really found it very interesting. And I want to get into a conversation with you about a lot of it. So I hope you don't mind if I get a bit more comfortable, Bobby.
Oh, great. Come on, relax. You're over my house. We're just getting together. Two people
Cool.
Getting together, talking about some stuff that maybe other people don't even know, or a little controversial topics, and maybe a little bit of conspiracy stuff too, because we're going to talk a little bit about that also.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Let's get right into it, Ryan. Ryan Barnard. Did I say? No, I didn't say your last name, Barnard. Okay. Ryan has a YouTube channel, Dually Diagnosed. Check it out, please. I just posted something on Facebook about that. Dually Diagnosed on Facebook. Check him out. He's got a lot of professionals on there, and a lot of regular people talking about a lot of different things. I'd like to get right into this thing that you just did a YouTube channel probably yesterday, and what the heck was the title of that? Absurdity,
dodging personal responsibility, like a pro.
Yeah, it was. We were talking a lot about all kinds of different stuff, and rewiring, because this program is about deprogramming and reprogramming. So it's kind of the same thing that you were talking about, rewiring the brain, which can happen.
Sure.
In all cases, in some cases, I believe it probably cannot happen, and that's special cases. And, we're not talking about those cases. We're talking about Ryan and myself today. So what do you got to say about this rewiring of the brain?
Look, I think, again, I've mentioned in that video that I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so I've got a view on sort of that in that, growing up, I believe had that been treated while I was growing up, I would have had a different sort of outcome as an adolescent. Okay. So, so rewiring the brain, basically, I mean, I mentioned Malcolm Gladwell's book as well. I don't know if you've read it, Bobby. He talks about 10,000 hours being like the optimal amount of time to master any kind of practice or whatever. So, like, if you want to learn the guitar, the 10,000 hours is the optimal sort of, for you to be a real pro at it, right? And that's because the brain sort of rewires, it builds networks in that part. So, in the video I mentioned that people that play stringed instruments have thicker, the part of the brain that sort of deals with the left hand is a lot thicker. So when they do the scans, they obviously determine this kind of thing when they, they've done brain scans and all that kind of thing. So yeah, so the brain can most certainly be it can be rewired, and it's constantly being rewired in terms of our experiences. So going through traumatic experiences rewire our brain, and we become sort of like when you're traumatized, you become sort of more alert and more anxious, obviously, and because you're constantly on the lookout for trouble or something out to get you or whatever the case, right? And that's just because it's such an intensive sort of experience that it's caused changes to the brain. So I think in terms of your topic, Bobby, deprogramming from AA, I think if coming from a desperate and hopeless sort of place when you're in addiction, or when you hit your rock bottom or whatever it is, right? Coming out of that, it's very easy to sort of become indoctrinated into a way of thinking, right? And I think AA in a lot of ways, there's a lot of, I think there's some good that comes from it, but there's a lot of sort of bad players, if I can put it that way, that sort of take advantage of the concept and the what it is, and sort of use it for their own sort of personal agendas and that kind of thing, and it's people end up sort of going down a road where they're indoctrinated into some kind of bullshit.
So in other words, yeah, right. I agree with you. And I call it, that's why they call it programming. Okay. Yep. It's a program, and it's a programming. And actually when we go there, because I went there for many, 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 many years. Okay. What actually was happening through words, through phrases, through repetition, it is wiring my brain into programming something that I am being told. Okay, so it's not coming from me, it's coming from the exterior. And when I go into Alcoholics Anonymous, they ask you to raise your hand and say, oh, my name is Bobby C. and I'm an alcoholic. Well, I am not an alcoholic. Okay, I may have had problematic drinking and drugging, but I sure am not an alcoholic. It's like I am not a diabetic. I have diabetes. I might have had a problem, and they want to try to compare cancer or diabetes to this thing that they call alcoholism. But in reality, we can overcome this and rewire our brains to without labels, without the words alcoholic, addict, or brain diseased or powerless. So yeah, I agree with that. And you mentioned 10,000 hours of bad programming. And that's what I think me and you went through in an early stage. We went through some 10,000 hours of bad programming through environment, through different types of social, psychological, physiological, emotional deficiencies, lack of skills. And for me, when I came in and decided to say yes to help, and me personally, I believe in abstinence. That's just for me. Now, people can moderate, people use harm reduction. And actually what you're talking about, we'll tap on this a little bit. What you're talking about, I think, is using medication at a younger age. We could call that harm reduction in a sense, because it's reducing future harm. Would you agree with that?
I would say so. So, I mean, if you're a 6-year-old and you can't pay attention in class, and it's just, a miserable experience, and you constantly sort of, either you're showing symptoms of like hyperactivity or just like complete deficient attention deficit, right? So you aren't able to sort of really focus. I think, yes, medication, if that's gonna help you concentrate in the moment, right? So, you could, as an adult, I grew up with ADHD. I sort of went through schooling with that sort of, with that brain, right? And I by the time I reached the age of, I don't know, what is it, 22, when I think your brain like stops developing entirely, right? Or it enters like a decline stage, right? By the time you hit that stage, it's too late to really sort of rewire it without some kind of really intensive experiences. I don't know if I don't even think medication can necessarily help. I think in my case, medications kind of like turn into like a chronic sort of thing. Whereas, had I taken it when I was 6, it would have helped while my brain was forming. It really would have made a difference in terms of rewiring the way I experience, rewiring my brain and helping me experience the world in a different way through the way that I experience the world. Kind of like it would sort of become a snowball effect, if that makes sense. So that's where I. Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple questions about that. Are you still on? Are you still on a medication? Are you still on medication? Are you on medication right now?
Yes. Yeah. So
okay. What medication do you take?
So it's called Strattera. It's an forget what it's called, an SNRI or something, so it's it's in a way it's like an antidepressant. It's a fairly new drug, but it works in your adrenal glands, right? So the thing with ADHD is you kids have it's sort of, I think it's based on your prefrontal cortex, right? So that's where your concentration sort of centers lie, right? And ADHD people, I think they've done brain scans and they have smaller prefrontal cortex than people that don't have ADHD, right? So, I think what the medication does, I don't know, like Ritalin. I don't know if you've heard of Ritalin, and there's other ones. So those are stimulants. So it's the Ritalin, Concerta. There's another one that's used a lot in the States. But so it's a stimulant, right? So it sounds counterintuitive to give somebody that's hyperactive a stimulant, right? Because you just think they're going to get more hyper.
Well, let me stop you here. Let's slow down a little bit, and we'll have just quicker answers, because the audience, I'm just getting a perspective from you, not the scientific study, because we could go, that could go forever. Right. So we're talking more just you personally. So you're on medication. Does your doctor, psychiatrist, or you yourself see an exit strategy, or are you on it for life, do you think?
I asked him, I said, listen, when is it going to be time for me to come off this stuff? And he laughed. He just laughed at me. So I don't know. So I don't know when that's going to happen. But
okay. So that there is no exit strategy for you at this particular
not at the
time.
moment.
Not at the moment. No big deal. That's just being honest and being truthful about yourself, who you are. And how about the disease model? Because I think in there we talked about being a victim. Okay. Like victimhood versus taking responsibility. I see you as taking responsibility. You're not considered you're a victim of anything. You're just taking responsibility to help yourself to grow so you can concentrate and you can produce. And I don't know what the hell kind of medication you're on, but all I know is that you're brilliant. Okay. I see what you do. I hear what you do. I see your accomplishments. So I look at it sometimes, people will say, Bobby, I look at it, could be that you got a gift, and we're making such a big deal out of this gift that you have, that we deny the gift and make it into something that is like bad, a victim, or something's wrong, which I don't see that at all, man. I tell you, I don't know how in the hell you do half the shit you do.
Thanks, Bobby. Cool. Look, I mean, again, when I was at school, having been through that process, it was a miserable experience. I failed grade 10 twice, right? You can imagine, I'm sure, that arriving at grade 10 for the 3rd year in a row, how fucking miserable. Can I swear on this? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so how fucking miserable that moment was, right? It was humiliating. It was all sorts of things. And so, that at that time in my life, I was so sort of I felt so incredibly incompetent and useless and stupid that I never thought I would really achieve very much with my life at all, right? I didn't see myself as remotely intelligent or anything like that, right? In a lot of ways, that's carried through with me. I like often sort of still feel that way. And like imposter syndrome and you know shit like that. But I and that's I think so. In a lot of ways, there's two sides to that coin. I don't know. Sorry, I don't want to hop on here, but it like you know that kind of like sort of sense of low self-esteem, if you want to put it that way, sort of puts me in a place where I feel like I need to prove that I am competent, right? So there's like almost like a motivational factor there. But at the same time, I think I've found my passion in life, which is being entrepreneurial, right? Which is it's a creative pursuit, right? So it's something that you know I can build businesses and I can sort of create things and sort of combine resources and shit like that, and I'm good at it, right? So it's not sort of like a you know, like an accounting job where I kind of have a set routine. You know, being an entrepreneur is like permanently being on an adventure of serious ups and serious downs, and it's cool. I'm you know, so I'm very lucky from that perspective that I'm able to pursue all of that. You know,
So let me just pause you. That's kind of like what you were just saying, what you were just talking about. This is why I have this no labels. I'm not deprogramming people. I'm not helping deprogram people from just Alcoholics Anonymous.
sure.
I'm helping deprogram from society.
Sure.
Okay. Because when we were little kids, society told us something was wrong with us. It wasn't one person. It was education. The school system in itself needs to be deprogrammed in itself because it really doesn't really work because it separates. I actually think it separates the gifted. I failed second grade, not twice, but once. And it was because of reading. And I still have a problem reading. I still have a problem with maintaining. I still have a problem with low self-esteem. I have a problem with everything that you talk about, and everything you think you have a problem with, I have a problem with too. And what I found out, you know, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they want to try to make us different. You know, we're so different. See, that's the problem with society. They want to put us in these little boxes. Okay. Yep. So if you can't get educated the way we want you to educate, then something's wrong with you. So I go in Alcoholics Anonymous and they tell me I got this disease, I got this problem. You don't have to be responsible for it anymore. Okay. You don't have to be responsible for something because it's a disease. Okay. Matter of fact, there's no cure for it. The only cure is to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me have your will and your life and give me your care and recruit others for life, you know, and that don't work. That's not called freedom. Okay. But getting back, society in itself has programmed us into believing a lot of things that aren't true.
No, agreed. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, and that's, I keep on wanting to revert to sort of like these sort of scientific ideas that I've been reading about, Bobby. I hope you don't mind, right? But like from a personality point of view, right? I know I'm not, I'm 100% not wired to sort of follow the rules. I'm wired to negotiate.
Me too.
I'm wired to negotiate on my own behalf. I am less likely to negotiate on somebody else's behalf, right?
That's a gift.
So
that's great.
I'm sort of,
that's great.
sure, but
I can relate to that.
It also means that I'm like relatively low in compassion, right? So I'd make a very bad nurse or a very bad school teacher. You know what I mean? Like that won't work for me. You know what I mean? So, so I think we all have personality traits, right? And I think school sets us up for you know a life of I don't know, sitting behind a desk and sort of pushing paper, right?
Maybe a life of conformity, a life of authority, a life of being controlled, a life of being manipulated, indoctrinated.
That's it. Agreed. 100%. And I'm sort of, again, you know, I'm not wired to follow the rules. I'm wired to sort of live in the gray area, if that makes sense. And kind of like push the boundaries and sort of, that's just how I'm wired. And that sort of manifested itself at school as well. It's like I did not follow the rules. I was just you know, you can't tell me what to do, and that's just just the way I am, right? You know, going into AA or NA or whatever it is, one of the 12-step fellowships, and like, you know, I had a friend, and I'm probably gonna talk about this in many different videos, right? But this friend came to me and he said he can't associate with me because I'm on medication and that makes me not clean. So he just got out of rehab, right? So he doesn't want to, I don't know. His words to me were, okay, he said, listen, I don't want to die, okay? So that means I have to listen to my sponsor, okay? And I'm prepared to do whatever he tells me to do. And his sponsor told him to tell me that I'm not clean and that because I'm on meds and he cannot associate with me as a result. So if my sponsor told me not to associate with somebody that I've known my entire life, I would tell him to fuck off, like that. And because it's bullshit. What is that? Where does that come from?
Well, let me just jump in here because I can relate to that 100%. But I'm going to come in defense of any program out there, or not defense of Alcoholics Anonymous in this sense. I was in for probably over 30 years, and I went against the stream the whole time I started. Okay, I broke the rules. It was just like you being in school or me being in school. I broke all the rules, and I did it their way and I did it my way, and I found out that my way works best. Okay, so I always, in the very beginning, went against the conformity and the authority of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was lucky in that sense because this gentleman that came to my house, he wasn't a big book thumper, and he wasn't, I didn't call him a sponsor, I called him a friend. He didn't push the big book down my throat. He believed in freedom, okay? So I was lucky in that sense in the beginning. And all through the whole process of me being in Alcoholics Anonymous, I always checked out other things and other avenues. But I'm here to say this. I'm here to say one thing about alcoholics, that I think it's what type of meeting you go to, really. Not, it sounds like I'm defending Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'm defending humanity and society in a good sense, in this sense that if you go to clubs, you're going to get people coming out of rehabs, going in and out, people that don't really want to do anything. They come into a meeting, they could talk bullshit, they think they know the whole program. I stayed away from clubs, okay, these things called clubs. The meetings that I attended, I really didn't hear much of that. If somebody came up to me and said they were on meds, I would say, well, I'm not a doctor. You got to do what the doctor says. And that sounds cool to me. As long as you're, what the hell, Alcoholics Anonymous is about drinking. It ain't about anything else, right? That's what I would say from the very beginning. And I really I really didn't hear that a lot. So I was fortunate enough that I hung around with, here's the key part, the really cool part about any society you join. I don't care if it's a Boy Scouts or what. I always hung around with people that were like-minded with me. If people were trying to tell me exactly what to do and make me conform and tell me I had to do it this way, I wouldn't hang around them, okay? I had that like you had it. I had that inside of me, okay? So if somebody told me, if I was on meds and somebody told me don't use meds, I tell them, look, shut up, will you? Matter of fact, you're not my friend anymore, take off. Because I feel that it's helping me. And let's talk about being your own advocate. You know, we believe in professionals and doctors and studies and scientific research and all that stuff. And half of it's bullshit too. Okay, so we need a balance when we talk about conspiracy theories, because a lot of things is conspiracy. Come on, let's be honest. So we need a balance of what's real, what works for you. Sure. What works for you? What do you got to say about that, Ryan?
I think it's can be tricky. I think everything. I mean, it's like addiction is like it's like a multi-dimensional. It's very complicated and complex. I mean, you know, so I think doing what's right for you, okay, all good, right? Again, I'm gonna come back to personality. So if you've got a very sort of you know, if you're strong in compassion and you're a very sort of like polite person, right? So if you're a very agreeable person, right, you're gonna be easily influenced, okay? And there's a story that I got, right? I remember going to a meeting, and every time I was at this meeting, it would end late, and this guy would ask me for a lift home, and it'd be like, live like 100 kilometers, I don't know where, you live miles away, and I'd have to sort of give this guy a lift home, and it happened every single meeting. And I was like, eventually I started getting irritated because I'd get home after midnight just because of, you know, having to drive out of the way for this dude. I don't mind doing things for people, but I started getting angry with this guy and irritated, right? And you know, I don't know if I need to be deprogrammed on this front, but I looked at my part in it, and my part is that I was being dishonest when he asked me if I could give him a lift. I was like, I was just agreeing to it and trying to be a nice person, but I was like, I actually wanted to get home because I was worried that my girlfriend, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now, but if I was worried that she, you know, wasn't okay, or I don't know, we live in a dangerous country, right? So I wanted to be home to make sure that she was cool. So being told, I also, Bobby, my first sponsor, he was also very cool. Hey, but he didn't shove stuff down my throat. He was very cool guy, and he really, he wasn't a Nazi, if I can use that word, right? He wasn't a Nazi by any means. So my problem is, you know, it's like this friend of mine, right? It's cool. He doesn't want to associate with me because he thinks that, I don't know, me being on meds is going to contaminate his fucking, I don't know how it works in his mind, right? But whatever he thinks, right? That's his decision, and it's his choice, right? But my problem is that it isn't. It's his sponsor's choice. His sponsor gave him that direction. So, you know, again, you try and tell me what to do. Good luck with that one. I question everything. I'm constantly overanalyzing stuff. I'm constantly, my default reaction is no. Like, that's my default reaction, right? This guy's, he's like, I don't know, he's probably a lot more compassionate, and he's fallen into some bullshit ideology, and he's been brainwashed. And now this sponsor, this weirdo, has some kind of control over him, and it's concerning. Do you know what I mean? That's what I have a problem with. So yeah, I'm all for, you know, choosing your own direction, and I'm not a fan of people going, hey, if you don't, you know, if you don't look at your part in it, you're gonna die, and what. I'm like, no, I'm gonna question everything. I'm not just gonna fall for it because it's in the book. Sorry.
No, I agree with you.
Listen, that book was written in sorry, I don't know when it was written, but I know AA formed in 1935, the same year that the prefrontal the lobotomy, you know, they stick an ice pick in your eye. I don't know if you know that procedure.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it was invented in 1935, the same time as AA.
Yeah.
We went from the first international flight, okay, taking people, you know, a bunch of people on an aeroplane across country in I think it was 1914, right? 50 years later, we landed the first man on the moon. Do you know what I mean? So, like, my point that I'm trying to make is, you invent something in 1935, and you know, there are people in 2022 going on like it's the the second coming. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, science and different things have advanced. There's different ways that you can also consider and look at. AA is not the only way. Listen, don't get me wrong, Bobby. I'm not an anti-AA or anti-12-step person. I'm just like, what I'm trying to say is there's other options. What I'm trying to say is there's, you know, use your brain and think about stuff and look at stuff. Don't just fall into a trap of listening to someone, you know, that thinks they're a messiah, and that they can tell you what to do because they're you know, they've got a bit of clean time behind them. Like that's ridiculous. It's absurd. So that's my point. So
no, well, look, anybody that watches my podcast knows that's my point too. I am anti-AA. I'm just like anti-religion, anti-government, anti-AA. I'm anti a lot of different things, but I'm not a prohibitionist. Okay, I believe in the power of choice. I believe in the freedom of choice. Do whatever you want to do. It's your deal. If you want to be, I believe that we are victims when we become victims of a brainwashing cult. We want to be. we're victimized. We're victimized, but we don't have to stay that way. That's what this podcast and that's what we're talking about. We don't have to stay there because of responsibility, taking responsibility.
That's it.
You wrote something here, rejecting responsibility in exchange for different diagnoses that will explain all of our shortcomings with a simple acronym like ADHD, DID, OCD, SUD, SAD, social anxiety disorder, whatever the disorder you want to do, because scientists, and then you did mention it, that the pharmaceutical industry, there's no big conspiracy against the big pharma, but I push back against that, okay? And I push back pretty hard because, look, let's just say half of the community is full of shit and the other half is just trying to make money, and pharmaceutical industry is right there and they're making money and they're pumping out some stuff and they're putting people on antidepressants that shouldn't be on antidepressants. Let's be real here too. We gotta look at the balance of this stuff.
Who's to decide though? Like
Pardon
who's
me?
to decide? And who's putting the people on antidepressants? You know what I mean? Are the healthcare profession? Listen, I agree with you that
yes they are.
I agree that there are a minority of, and I use the word minority purposefully. Hey, like there's a minority of healthcare professionals that do not have the best intentions, right? And they might be out there to make a bit of money, right? Like a 100%, or sorry, not be out there to make money. Like that's their sole intention, or whatever the case, right? And they aren't entirely ethical, right? I agree with that. That happens, but it doesn't mean because you get a small minority of these idiots doing that kind of thing that all of them are that way inclined.
Okay. No, I agree with you 100% there. But here's what when I talk about deprogramming, I talk about deprogramming society, the educational system, the college system. You got to go. I have to go back. I do podcasts connecting the dots and follow the money. I go way back. Okay, who took over the pharmaceutical industry? Who took over the holistic industry? Who hijacked the AMA? Look, here's the deal. The educational system was designed for a reason. You got to be careful because in itself is an indoctrination system. I'm not blaming the psychiatrist, the therapist, and all these other counselors and stuff like that because they're brainwashed too. They're brainwashed into a lot of stuff that society is.
Can I answer you there? Hey, so I think again, personal responsibility. So
no, I gotta. This phone is going to ring until I can't see it. So go ahead.
Okay, so personal responsibility. You need to take. And I discussed this with a few people last night. Like, before I can start changing the world, right? I gotta be able to make my bed in the morning first, and I gotta be able to, like do the simple things for myself, right? Okay. If it is a case that Big Pharma is out there, punting opiates left, right, and center, okay, wouldn't the responsible thing be to do if I was prescribed opiates? What's the responsible person? If I have to take personal responsibility, I'm going to investigate that again. Back to being, go for a second opinion, being critical about stuff. It's like going into AA and just buying into what the book says, because the book says it. It's like, no, like some of what the book says is bullshit. Some of what people tell you about opiates is bullshit. Like, be critical about stuff. And that's what I want. And that's a way of taking personal responsibility, right? So even if there is a grand conspiracy or whatever the case, right? Me taking personal responsibility, I can evade that, and I can do what's right for me. I don't know if that makes sense, Bobby.
Well, it makes definite sense because that's what I've been saying for the last couple of years. Cool. I mean, so it's not like look, there's no black and white in this. If you think not you now, when I'm talking to the audience. I'm not talking directly to you. I'm talking to the audience because there's no black and white thing to this. There's everything in between. Okay. It's like my life experience is not black and white. It's not good and bad. There's so much in between. When people say that I have time, I have 38 years in this recovery industry, this multi-trillion-dollar industry that is a big money making thing. when I talk about things, I talk about taking just exactly what you just said. I said a half an hour ago when I said that you have to become your own advocate.
Yes. I
Okay.
want to, yep. So I think the guys in 1935, I don't know, they talk about let me just find this note here that I made. Was it here? Updated. Yeah. So, let me just find this notes. Okay, here we go. Okay, the word psychiatrist appears 81 times in the big book. Why does the word psychiatrist appear 81 times in the big book? Why?
I'll tell you why. Because I study this stuff. I know all the history.
Yeah, yeah.
You can ask me any question about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'll
I'm
tell
interested.
you.
I'm curious.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I believe why, because Carl Jung,
Yep.
you know Dr. Carl Jung, right? He was
Cool.
a big influence. Okay, he was a big influence, and a couple. Look, Alcoholics Anonymous was copied. It was copied from religion, from Christianity, from medicine. Look,
Bobby, check this out. Check this out. Okay. Page 305, right? I know it's not the first 168 pages or whatever it is, but it's page 305. I spent this, okay, quoting here. I spent 5.5 years in psychoanalysis and proceeded to become drunk. I don't mean that in any sense as a derogatory statement about psychotherapy. It's a great tool, not too potent, but a great tool. So that's page 305. Page 308. And the psychiatrist has had thousands of couches and has put you and me on them many, many times, but hasn't helped us very much. That's page 308. Page 238. I had a long talk with my psychiatrist, but nothing came of that. I can go on and on and on. 81 times they use the word psychiatrist. And I think once that I counted was it used in a positive sort of affirmation towards psychiatry or psychology. I don't know what it was, but the rest of the time it was all attacking the concept of psychiatry. Now you're talking about the first antidepressant was invented in 1950, right? What the hell were these guys talking about exactly in 1935 when they wrote this bullshit, right? About psychiatry. Psychiatry in 2022 is not the same as it was in 1935. 1935, they were sticking ice picks in people's eyes. Okay. So I'm not surprised that they're going to think psychiatry is a load of shit, right? I get that.
Well, like you mentioned, you're talking about an antiquated pseudo
Exactly.
fake scam. So you're talking about a religion.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. It's a religion.
So it's a religion. So when you're telling my audience, or not my audience, but when you're telling the audience that subscribes to my channel, you're we all know that, we all agree on it 100%. Okay, we know it's all bullshit. And we know it's a scam, and it was a indoctrination system designed by Rockefeller, not by Bill and Bob. He hijacked it. The big book was not written until 5 years after Bill and Bob met. And they met and they stayed in the Oxford Group, which was a religious organization, for many years during this Alcoholics Anonymous scam that they were writing the book and everything. The step book wasn't written until 17 years later. And then Marty Mann and Brinkley Smithers and Jarnick got together, and they pumped out all this educational system about that. That's why I'm talking about the society has to be deprogrammed where this stuff came from and got indoctrinated into the education system. Why would somebody put $50 million or $80 million into a program in colleges for an indoctrination? There's an agenda and there's a reason why, you know.
But that's my problem with it. My problem with it isn't that conceptually being able to go out and be with other like-minded people, okay, that are going through what I'm going through and helping the next person, and sort of like from that spiritual perspective, right? Like on the surface of it, I think that's awesome. I think that can be helpful and all the rest of it, right? But I think there are people there that take this stuff and they turn it into absolute bullshit. And I think, look, I haven't investigated. I'm not going to just buy what you say to me, are they, Bobby? I'm going to go and investigate, right? So, but the Rockefeller thing, it could be true. And again, I think people are taking stuff like this anti-psychiatric sentiment. They don't understand where it's coming from, but they're walking around telling people like, hey, you need to get off your meds before I could take you through step 4. And then someone kills themselves because they got off the they were, who knows, whatever, right? Okay. That to me is like, it's like, see in the big book, they talk about psychiatry and they tell you about how psychiatry is all bullshit. And it's in the book. It's in the book. So it must be true. It's like, no, that's what irritates me about it. So from I'm not saying don't go to AA, and I'm saying there is value there. Okay. But I agree with you in a lot of ways that
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you, because I break down all the traditions. I break down all the steps. I mean, look, if you look at a tradition on just on anonymity, let's see here, tradition, here we go. Just the first tradition. I don't know if you know anything about the traditions, but the traditions govern the groups. They control the groups. And the first tradition is each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is but one small part of a great whole. And that's collectivism. That's the group think mentality, okay? They want you to conform to that type of thinking. And here we go. It says, AA must continue to live. AA, it's not even a person, it's a corporation. It's 3 corporations. Alcoholics Anonymous is 3 corporations. It's a multi-level marketing scheme that goes to the top, okay? So here we go. AA must continue to live, or most of us will surely die. Now that's a bold statement.
You know what their excuse for that is that it's not God's will. That's just humans will always let you down. It's man that lets you down. It's not, you know what I mean? They bring it back to I don't know. They come up with all sorts of, like you say, collectivism. I think, like feminism, right? I think when it first sort of was theorized or whatever, I don't know too much about it, so I'm not going to say too much on it, but I think it was like a fair, level-headed kind of theory, that made sense, okay? But what people are doing with it today, okay, and they've turned it into this insane, I don't know, like it's gone sort of wildly sort of it's become out of control, the way people sort of implement it and use the theory and all the rest of it, right? And I think that's what's happened here as well, is people are twisting all of this shit to death. Are you saying, though, Bobby, can I just ask you, are you saying, though, that it was the intention from the word go was nefarious? Like,
Yes,
there was
yes,
from
yes,
A1?
yes. A1. Okay.
Okay.
Well, it went way back. Alcoholics Anonymous is just a distribution. It's like a warehouse, because, even Dr. Silkworth told Bill, right to his face, he said, there's nothing we can do. You better go spiritual and make sure you call it a disease. Dr. Silkworth said that. Now, here's a book. Here's a book that they sell millions of. That's only 134 pages, really. The rest of the stories, 164 pages. And one doctor, Dr. Silkworth, way back in 1935, is going to tell me, because he actually said to himself, there's nothing we can do. You got to go to God.
I've never said this out loud, but I really don't get why more people don't call bullshit on that medical explanation in that book. What is it? What it is, like your liver secretes acids? What
it's a body
enzyme.
Well, whatever. I don't know where it says enzyme or not. But let's harm. Let's touch on that harm reduction a little bit.
Okay.
You said something about genetic inheritance, family influences, culture factors, encourages, attitudes, behaviors, and moods can be overridden, but difficult. And you know what? You were mentioning something in the thing. You were saying that your wife, you're like staring up into the sky. Your wife's talking to you, and you're not paying any attention to her. Okay? Do you think? I'm just asking you a question because I believe you can. I believe it, but you don't have to. But do you think that you can rewire that in some way to refocus your attention to listening to your wife instead of staring into the sky? Or is that physiologically and psychologically and mental that you cannot change that?
I use that. I use that definitely 100% jokingly, right? But there's a lot of truth in that. Is I do think that there are ways and techniques and sort of like things that I can do to help myself be better at paying attention to my wife when she's talking to me about whatever, right? But I think I've gone past the point that listen, if I spend 6 hours a day meditating, then I think I could get it right, Bobby, to answer your question. But again, I live in Joburg, I run businesses, I have shit to do. It's just, for me, I'm gonna just take a pill that, every morning and get on with my day. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense, right? Meditating for and I literally mean meditating for 6 hours a day. Like, I think short of that, my only solution would be to take medication for the ADHD, and maybe ask her to sort of like, try and work with me in a way and just sort of point it out when I'm doing it and so on and so forth. I don't know what you think about that, eh?
That sounds kind of extreme, here for 6 hours of meditation. Who in the hell? I would never even think of. I mean, I have a hard time meditating for 10 minutes. Okay, so I don't know how anybody would even meditate.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a hard time meditating. Meditation. Here's what I listen to this here. Some people sometimes miss the point because it's got to be big and bold. Okay, meditation. When you talk, I listen. That in a sense is a meditation. I'm meditating. I'm listening. I'm putting my attention into your energy that's coming through. So in a sense, we're both doing a form of medication. I mean, meditate. It's medication. It's our medication, because if we didn't, we couldn't even do this podcast, because I'd be interrupting you and you'd be interrupting me, and you're saying you're wrong and I'm wrong and you're right, blah, blah, blah.
Hey, Bobby, I could be trying to avoid having to take personal responsibility, hey? Like that it could be that, I don't know. I don't know. I don't shit, man, I've got kids and they're young kids and they wake up and my life is hectic sometimes. And I don't know. It's
called overwhelmed. That's called being overwhelmed. Shit, I've been there. I've had businesses. I've been overwhelmed. I had catering business where people have to rely on weddings to, I specialized in weddings. And if I didn't do this, and my brain would be day and night, I would be doing the job way before the job even happened.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
People will say, okay, well, what are you running businesses for? You should actually just like you're just chasing money, or you just what? It's like, I'm good at it, man. I'm good at building businesses, and I really am fucking good at it. It's something that I like, and I'm not trying to brag or but it's just something that and it's taken me a fucking long time to say that, out loud, like that I'm good at something, Bobby, but I know that I'm good at that, but I'm not gonna go move to the beach and meditate for fucking, even if it's for an hour I'm not going to do that. I want to live in Joburg and run businesses and build businesses, and that's what I want to do with my life. I don't want to.
And that's the freedom. And that's the freedom and choice. You're free to do that, and you're doing it, and no one can stop you, and you enjoy it, and that's all that matters. But
that's it.
But here's a little but. But I hate to use the word but sometimes we have to do a little bit of a compromise.
It's got to be balanced. I hear you. Okay.
Not balanced, just a little bit. Because hey, look, if my wife or the husband wants fancy stuff, they want to travel, they want to go places, they want to buy stuff, and they want to enjoy life with the good, it takes a lot of money. You have to respect the person that is oriented.
Can I comment on that? Say, that's weird. It's so weird because I asked my buddy. We were discussing each other's partners, and he asked me what I thought of his, and I said, well, what do you think about Mrs.? And he said he thinks she's a gold digger, and I was dumbfounded by that, because at the time I didn't have curtains in my house, and the reason I didn't have curtains in my house was because I took the money that I was meant to buy curtains with and I put it into my business. I had like a shitty little TV it's like a really shitty little TV. And in the rehab center, I had the big screen that was meant to be in my house was in the I made those sacrifices. I don't go on holiday. I never go on holiday. I said to my wife the other day, I was like, geez, how do people afford going on? She looked at me, she said, you can afford to go on holiday. You just don't want to. Like, I don't go on, I work fucking like insane hours. I'm constantly working. The quality of life. Okay. So look, yeah, you could say workaholic. You could say, okay, cool, whatever. Maybe I'm not as spiritual as I should be, and I should be sort of meditating and doing some of that at least. I really find purpose in living the way that I live. I really find a lot of value and purpose in it. I know they can go to extremes and I can end up burnt. I've been down that road, end up burnt out on the couch, not being able to function because I've put myself through so much. But the point that I'm trying to make is, what is the point that I'm trying to make?
That you enjoy what you're doing. That's, it's really more about the activity of doing it, the excitement, the creativity, the enjoyment, the passion. It's all about that. Look, you're where you're at. I'm where I'm at. We're no different. We're talking to human beings. Sure. I mean, if your wife was sitting here and we were doing a podcast with your wife or my wife, she'd tell you shit that, we really don't want the people to know. Okay.
Sure.
Let's be honest. Now you're a husband. How long have you been married?
I don't know, to be honest.
Well, 10.
No, it's like 7 years. 7 years.
Okay, so you've been married.
I've known her for 12 years.
Okay, so you've known her for 12. You're married for how many children do you have?
2.
2, boy and a girl. Or?
Yeah.
How old are they?
3 and 6.
Okay. If you're anything like me, I forget numbers. I forget birthdays. I just happen to do that. Hey, my wife, I got to write stuff down to remind me my anniversary. I couldn't even tell you what year right now, but I know how many years. I've been married 50 years. Okay. I have 2 daughters and I have 5 grandchildren.
That's awesome, man.
We can relate to that. We have a family. We have friends and family. I don't have too many friends, to tell you the truth, but I used to be more driven, more success driven. I still am. I mean, I still am in a sense, but I understand overwhelmness. Okay. When we put I understand that stress can be very, very mental and physical to the human body, stress. And the thing is that a lot of times we don't know we're under stress. We don't know we're stressing out, because we deny that in a sense that that's part of it all. But I'm not saying you're stressed and I'm not saying you're overwhelmed. I'm just talking to the audience. So the question then sort of comes to mind is like, can you take too much responsibility on, right? Okay. And I always really thought of myself as an incredibly responsible person, right? So personal responsibility, like in terms of meditating and sort of getting up and doing a bit of exercise and trying to do the self-care stuff, I struggle with that. Okay. I know it's important and I do make an attempt, right? And make efforts, right? But, taking on responsibility, like trying to do as much as I possibly can, all the time, it became crushing. It really became crushing. But having said that, it was an adventure, and I know where my limit is like now, and it's way further than I ever imagined it could be, right? Like I can take on a hell of a lot, and I think most people can too. I think people don't realize how much they can. I can't. I get.
Is it?
Some people can, and some people are just wired different. Let's talk. You know what? Go ahead.
Could you take on a lot of pressure like a few years back, or
years ago? I think as you get older, you tend to take on less. You get more aggravated and more stressed out because you're trying to pull. See, I was kind of a family man too, where I had to, I felt like I had to help here and do this and do that, and then do the job too, and so it was, being pulled in a lot of different ways. Let's talk about something. Let's talk about the mind, the brain. The brain is just a physical thing, right? It's just the brain is physical, right? Talk about the mind, right? Which is mental, and everything is, mentalism is a big thing, and cause and effect. causality is more important than effect, because effect, whatever effect, you can't change effect. Effect happened in the past. We can change the cause today, which may have an effect in the present moment.
I think I saw it on you. The guy, that reminds me of what's one of your videos where you posted one today, I think, about causality, and the guy mentions the matrix, right?
Right.
Yeah. So chemical. I mean, and the matrix is the perfect example. Like if what you're interpreting or what your perception of the world is just your brain, which is made up of chemicals and electrical impulses, it's just your brain interpreting that, then you can manipulate, and this is sort of ties in with my medication argument, you can manipulate that with medication. Like it's like an engineering tool that you can use. So sorry for bringing that up, but I remembered that.
No, that's Mark Passio. He believes, he's a teacher and he's a teacher philosopher in natural law, and he's probably one of the best in natural law. But that could be, that could be seen as a religion too. If somebody wants to look at it that way, they could pose it. But he believes in certain laws of the universe, and cause and effect is one of the laws in the universe that we can't.
Like karma, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can't get away with it because, the effects have to do with the physical, because it affects somebody. Okay. But the cause is like whatever I do has an effect. But so I can change that. That's the only thing I can change is the cause. The causality is mental. Okay. It's the why I do the things I do. So I don't know if you believe in shadow work. You believe in self-analysis? You ever go to a therapist or something? You believe in self-analysis instead of somebody else analyzing you? It's always like we go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and we want them to kind of tell us, more or less lead us into it. But I believe in self-analysis, shadow work, discovering new things. I believe in raising, I believe in the subconscious, the unconscious. I believe in raising the unconscious to the conscious level, becoming more aware of our society, of the world, of the universe. What do you think about that?
I 100% agree, Bobby. I think introspection, self-introspection. I mean, you're talking about introspection, right? Like self-analysis. I'm 100% on the same page. I think it's incredibly important. Like if you can't articulate your experiences, they're up in your head and they're floating around and probably not making very much sense. I don't know. So I think if you can articulate your issues, I personally believe in doing that in written form, right? Because it like makes a coherent sort of, gives me a coherent picture at the end of the process, right? So I'm on the same page as you with regards to that.
Yeah, I want to read something that has to do with the humanity as a whole remains ignorant of the underlying causes which they themselves set into motion, in which leads to self-inflicted suffering in our lives. Now,
but hold on, society, sorry, if you read that first part of it, society does that.
Well, I'm talking about society in a whole. We do this as an individual, but we're a collective society. So society is doing it to themselves. All the things that happen, or the things that are happening in the world, we are doing it collectively to ourselves. We're inflicting suffering. No one else is doing it.
You don't think that's because of a lack of personal responsibility again? And like it brings to mind this like Buddhist proverb that I recall hearing, where the guy talks about there were these two entertainers and they were riding through town on a unicycle, and there was a guy on the unicycle, and then that was the master, and then there was a guy on top juggling, and the guy juggling said, listen, you watch me and I'll watch you, and that way we won't fall off the bike. And the master looked at him and said, no, I'll watch me and you watch yourself, and that way we won't fall off the bike, right? So we could talk about society as a collective, but at the end of the day, society is made up of individuals that all in small increments as the individual make choices and decisions and it turns into a collective. If you know
Right.
what I mean. So it's not like the collective is sort of like there's a hive mind sort of.
No, I
You
didn't.
know,
No, I don't know. I think you just said the exact same thing I just said. I just
Sure.
heard you say,
Yeah.
I just heard you say the exact same thing that I read. And
Cool.
each individual makes up society, and it's our responsibility to make these changes, which I believe society is not doing. I think they're going in altogether wrong direction. You know,
Okay.
Ryan, what do you want to close on? We got a couple more minutes. What would you like to close on? And maybe say something to the audience. Maybe get a shout out to your YouTube channel again, and talk about your rehab a little bit.
Well, Bobby, I just want to say that I really think that you're doing an amazing job as well. Like I really do. I think you've done an amazing job with your channel, and you're reaching out, and you really sort of you know, you've got strong opinions, but I mean that's cool. I think that's important. I think a lot of people don't, right? So I just want to say, like, really well done on what you're doing, and thank you for having me on. And yeah, and yeah, if you guys out there that are watching this could check out my channel, you know, maybe it's not for you, maybe it is for you, I don't know. Give it a check it out, and I'd really appreciate any comments as well. So if you could sort of, you know, comment on whatever it is that I've got put out there, whether it be a critical comment or a good comment or whatever the case. Like, I think anything really helps me tailor things and get things out in the right direction. And make decisions, right? So yeah, thanks for that. And I suppose you'll put a link to my channel, and I'll put a link to your channel on my end, Bobby.
Yes, I don't even know if I know how to put up a link, but I'll try my best. I sent it out to Facebook, but don't forget to subscribe to Duly Diagnosed on YouTube. Okay, check out ARC, Addiction Recovery Center, over there in South Africa. You know, we're international, man. Look, hey, we're over here talking to Ryan in South Africa. That's international, right? Okay, so, and don't forget to subscribe to Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast International. Yeah, I keep on saying that because it's kind of
I know some guys in the UK. If I'll put you in touch with them as well. Hey, I don't know if you engage with some guys.
Send them over. Send them over.
Okay, will do.
All right, Ryan, I think maybe I'll get on do a podcast with you someday, and I'll appreciate that. You set it up, and I'll come on anytime you like.
Thanks, Bobby. I really enjoyed this. Thank you. Hey,
Ryan, take care now. We'll see you later. Okay, stay on. I'll talk to you afterwards. Bye-bye.